Colleagues, thanks for joining this session, and today we are going to look at topic number 4, which is staffing. I expect to have library and information science students year 2 semester 1. Now in slide number 1 here we are looking at the meaning of staffing. Basically, staffing is one of the topics that we study, and earlier we have been looking at the topics within this management science course, which include the introductory topic, which include topic number 2, which is planning, and then topic 3, which is organizing, and topic number 4 is staffing. So today we are looking at topic number 4, which is staffing. In our slide number 1 here, we are looking at the meaning of staffing. Basically, staffing refers to bringing people into the organization. When top management has created an organizational structure, the high-level organizational structure, then people have to be brought into the organization to do the work that the organization wants to do in order to achieve its goals and objectives as the organization works towards realizing its dream or towards realizing its vision. That's why this topic of staffing and of course human resource management is important. Now, the organization needs these specialists to do specialized work. It also needs workers who may not be specialists to do those non-specialized duties. Many scholars agree that the human resource is basically the greatest asset any organization can have, and other scholars have said that it is the human resources which are the most important resources in an organization. If you remember our topic number 3, we were looking at the basic parts of an organization, and we noted that people are a very important part of an organization, and some scholars believe that they are the most important part of the organization. That's why scholars have agreed that basically these are the most important assets any organization can have. Now, human resource management is the part of management which is basically concerned with managing people. Formerly, this function of management was known as welfare management. Then later it was known as personnel management. That was the common term used. But after Elton Mayo's Hawthorne studies, this term human resource management emerged. Now, human resource management is that part of management which is concerned with managing people. So it is a strategic approach that ensures that a sufficient workforce is brought into the organization, and we need to bring in people who are committed enough to do the work of the organization. So we need various people or different people to assist in ensuring that the activities of the organization are done properly and in good time. Now, there are other terminologies apart from human resource management which are cropping up today. One of them is known as talent management. Talent management has much to do with retaining people in the organization. Because when various people come into the organization, they come in with various talents which the organization may require as it performs different activities in order to achieve its various aims and objectives. Now, in managing people, there are particular things that the human resource manager has to do before we begin looking at the personnel management side. First of all, the human resource manager has to design the job that these people are going to do. After designing the job, the human resource manager has to analyze that job and then also has to describe the job. We shall look at this in our coming slide, number 2. Well, slide 2 here looks at the roles and duties of a human resource manager. Now, the human resource manager is a very important person in the organization because that person is chiefly responsible for handling the entire human resource management process. The person is responsible for looking at the human side of enterprise in the organization. Now, it is the human resource manager who is responsible to manage job design, job analysis, and job description, and also to manage all matters relating to staff who do the various jobs in the organization. Now, looking at job design. As far as job design is concerned, the job has to be designed to make it as efficient as possible. The job has to be well structured so that it is efficiently done. And in structuring the job, we surely must think about the workflow. How is work going to flow that relates to that particular job? And there are many questions that we may ask ourselves in relation to job design, like who are the members of staff who are needed to do that job? How much do we need to pay them? How will this job now fit the personal needs and requirements of the employees who are going to perform those tasks and who are going to do that job? Questions like, is this job fitting very well with the work habits of the employees who are supposed to do that particular job? We ask ourselves questions like, what training will the employee require who is responsible for doing that job and doing it properly? How shall we address the prejudices, the stereotypes, and the negative attitudes that are associated with that particular job that employee is going to do? And is this job meeting the business requirements of the organization? So those are some of the questions that we ask ourselves when we are thinking about job design. Those are the questions that the human resource manager has to ask when the activity of designing the job is being done. So job design is one of the most important activities that a human resource manager must carry out. And basically this normally comes before job analysis, and after job analysis then we can describe the job. Now in our next slide we shall basically look at job analysis. Slide number 3 looks at job analysis. The words job, work, and task are sometimes interchangeably used. This basically relates to the scope of the work to be done. In the slide we are saying that competency modeling threatens to replace the term job analysis. Those who coined the term argue that job analysis is old-fashioned. However, job analysis is basically a systematic scientific study of the job. Now, in studying the job, the investigator looks at things like the nature of that job, the various characteristics of the job. We ask ourselves questions: is the job characterized by repetitive tasks and things of that nature? Are the sequence of operations relating to the job or relating to a particular piece of work, are the sequence of these operations sensible enough? Those are some of the questions that we ask ourselves in job analysis. The investigator also notes that the chief aim of job analysis is again to make the job as efficient as possible, just like we have it in job design. Now, when we are doing job analysis, we also ask ourselves whether the operations that are involved in doing a particular job produce the output which is desired. We note the behavior that is necessary to do the job. We take note of the experience required in doing that job. We consider the talent that is required in doing the job efficiently. We note the duties that are involved in carrying out that duty or in doing that job. Now, we also consider the working conditions necessary in doing that job. Surely, work analysis provides enough information about the job content. So, work analysis should provide us with enough information about the job content. You remember in chapter number 5, we looked at motivation as one of the things that we shall study in chapter number 5. And in one of the motivation theories, we have a gentleman known as Hertzberg, who came up with a two-factor theory of motivation that focuses also on job content factors. Therefore, in work analysis, we are also interested in job content factors. What are the job contents? What are the contents of the job? Now, if the job is analyzed very well, then we shall get the right people to do the job. But if the human resource manager fails to analyze the job very well, or if the job is analyzed poorly, if the analysis is poor, then we may end up getting a wrong person to do the job. In our next slide, let us look at job description. Slide number 4 looks at job description and job specification. Job description is basically or mainly based on job analysis. Job description involves interrelated tasks. Now, in describing a job, the human resource manager looks at various issues. These issues may involve job content issues like the tasks the job contains, the goals of that job. These issues may also involve the person to do the job. So, job description involves describing the various tasks to be performed. Job description also involves describing the various duties of the employee. The description involves the desired qualities and skills of that employee, the authority and responsibility the person who wields that authority needs to have in doing this job, the operational unit where the job is housed, the remunerations and benefits that accrue to that particular job and that the person who will be doing the job will enjoy, and others. Now, there are particular things that we must include in our job description document. For example, the authority has to be specified that person will wield in the job description document. The responsibility that the person will be having should be clarified in the job description document. Now, there are other things that we must consider. The hard skills that are required of the person who will be doing that job, the soft skills and behavioral competencies required of the person to do that particular job. Sometimes we may also clarify who is the immediate supervisor in relation to that job, and the job description must relate to the various positions within the organization. So, when we describe a job, we must come up with what we call a job description document. And this document is a legal document, and it is common in formal organizations. Remember, in our topic number 3, we learned about formal organizations and informal organizations. Now, in a formal organization, it is common that when an employee is taken on, the employee is given a document that describes the particular job that this employee is responsible for and the authority that goes along with working on that particular job. Now, this job description document is very important. It describes the job and specifies issues that are related to this particular job which a particular employee is taken on to assist in doing that job for the organization. Slide number 5 looks at human resource planning. There is need to plan for the right number of people in our organization. There is need to assess the currently available members of staff in the organization. Now, this is because human resources in the organization keep on changing. So we need to collect enough information relating to the labor market, relating to labor supply and the labor demand, and we know that labor may be supplied by fresh graduates from universities. So we need to plan for the desired competences and skills that we shall need in future in our organization. We need to plan well ahead. The organization needs enough staff to carry out various activities. So we need to plan how the members of staff we have in our organization will be deployed and redeployed. That's why we always need to have a staff inventory to determine the members of staff available that we can deploy and redeploy. In slide number 6, let us look at staff selection and recruitment. Slide number 6 looks at staff selection. We shall also be looking at staff recruitment on slide number 7. Now, as far as staff selection is concerned, this precedes staff recruitment, and the entire process begins by a job advert. Now, in selecting staff, we may apply various staff selection techniques. One of these techniques is the so-called tests. Sometimes you can give the candidates a test to see how they perform. In many cases, organizations may prefer an aptitude test for candidates who have been shortlisted, and then they come in and you give them an aptitude test. Sometimes they may be given a practical test, especially if the job they are applying for would require good technical knowledge and good technical skill. The other technique that you may use is interview. Sometimes you may interview the candidates. You may want to find out how they argue their points. You may wish to hear from hear about their experience. You hear from their narration, how they narrate their background, and so on and so forth. So interview is another technique that you can use to select candidates who are likely to be recruited in your organization. Now, assessment centers. You may use assessment centers as a technique to select members of staff, especially members of staff whom you intend to put at higher management levels, middle management level, and so on. Some organizations prefer to use assessment centers to select these type of staff in their organization. Now, you may apply various staff selection approaches as well. One of the approaches that we can apply is personal preference. You may personally prefer somebody to come to your organization, so you may use personal preference approach to select that person to come to your organization. The other approach that you may use is what we call wished selection. You may wish that somebody came and joined your management team, for example, or your working team in the organization. So that is what is referred to as wished selection. Now, there are other staff selection approaches which we need to explore from various information sources so that we can improve our knowledge on the various techniques that organizations use to select staff, the various approaches that organizations normally apply in order to select staff. But it's important that when you have selected the candidates, you first of all monitor them and see whether they have the desired qualities, they have the desired skills, they have the desired competences that are, ideal for the kind of job you would like them to do in your organization. Now let us go to slide number 7 and look at staff recruitment. Slide number 7 looks at staff recruitment. In staff recruitment, we get information from job analysis. So much of the information that we use when we are recruiting members of staff is got from job analysis that is expected to have done earlier before you decide to recruit new members of staff into your organization. Now, during the staff selection, you need to keep on monitoring the selected candidates for various skills that you may desire in the organization, for various qualities that the organization may desire, for various behavioral competencies that you probably may see in some of the candidates that you've selected in your organization. These are important to monitor so that you can pick out the candidates who possess those skills, who possess the required knowledge that you desire, and who possess the behavioral competencies that you may desire as an organization. Now, it's your duty that after you've selected them, you must keep them interested in the organization and entice them to accept a job offer in case you decide to offer them the job. If the job offer is extended, you've already enticed them into the organization and they probably will be able to accept the job offer. And this selection exercise is important, that when you've selected, you monitor and you'll be able to pick up the right candidates from the pool of selected candidates. One of the duties of the human resource manager is basically to draw up employment contracts such that they are ready when these candidates accept a job offer. You ask them to sign an employment contract. Now, in the next slide, we shall look at various staff recruitment strategies. But it is important that you always, as an organization, base recruitment on the desired attributes that the organization requires in these selected candidates. Now, in slide number 8, let us look at the staff recruitment strategies. Slide number 8 looks at various recruitment strategies, staff recruitment strategies that organizations may apply to recruit members of staff. Now, one of the strategies is recruiting from interns who have done internship in your organization. Some of these interns come from universities, others from higher institutions of learning that may not be universities. Now, when these interns do work in your organization, sometimes they are monitored by the organization. The organizations monitor their ability in various areas. The organizations may monitor the ability of the intern in relation to specialized work that the intern may be doing, and so on and so forth. So when the organization is impressed by the skill, qualities, and the competencies this intern has displayed, then they may base on that to employ the intern. After the intern has finished studies, a job offer may be extended to that intern. Another strategy, recruitment strategy, that some organizations may apply is noticing someone from the pool of selected candidates, those who are committed, appear to be committed to their career. When such people are noticed, then the organization may use that strategy to employ them, recruit them, and they are added on to the inventory of members of staff who are in that organization. So that is what some organizations do, because there are various people who surely are committed on their career, and they may add value to the organization's business processes if they joined that particular organization. Now, another strategy that an organization may use is to, based on the candidate's social skills, because some candidates exhibit desirable social skills. Management scholars have noted that this slide looks at staff orientation. Staff orientation is another important responsibility of the human resource manager. The human resource manager is responsible to orientate new members of staff when they join the organization. This is important because now the employee, the new employee, is in a new environment and is going to meet a new culture, a new way of doing things. That's why these new employees need to be orientated and socialized into the organization. The employee, the new employee, is meeting new people, is meeting a new way of doing things. The employee must learn and appreciate the organizational values that are cherished in this organization which the employee has joined. Various organizations have their own values. For example, non-discrimination, non-segregation. These are some of the values that a number of formal organizations cherish. So the employee must be socialized into these new values. That's why staff orientation and staff socialization is quite important. The employee must get used to the organization's members of staff, the members of staff that this employee has found in this organization. That new employee must get used to them. And this is part of staff orientation, part of staff socialization for new members of staff. To make life easier for the employee, sometimes a settling in package is given to the employee. Sometimes it's known as a settling in allowance. This money, it's normally in form of a monetary package, is given to the new employee to assist this employee to settle comfortably in the organization. Now, some organizations do it with a welcome party. They arrange or organize a welcome party for new employees to make them feel welcome, so that they reduce their anxiety, their fear, and they encourage them to get used to members of staff they are going to work with, and to know that this is an organization that is quite welcoming. In the slide, let us look at staff placement. This slide looks at staff placement. After the member of staff has been recruited, the new member of staff, this member of staff needs to be placed where to work. In other words, you have to show the employee where to work. That is what we call staff placement. Now, the staff the new member of staff is placed so that this new member can execute duties that are required for the new member to execute. Many organizations practice also what is known as job rotation, which is basically part of staff placement. Or sometimes the members of staff are moved between and among jobs. The member of staff may be transferred to other departments, to other units. If it is a project, an organization full of projects, the member of staff may be transferred among various projects. This is what we call, this is also part of staff placement. Sometimes the organization may base on this job rotation to promote a member of staff, because the more a member of staff is rotated in the organization, the more experience the member of staff gathers relating to activities that are done in that organization. Promotion basically means elevating a member of staff to a higher position in the organization. Sometimes it becomes difficult to get promotion unless the managers are sure that this member of staff who needs promotion has understood what this organization wants and has appreciated the vision of the organization and knows the ropes around the organization. That's where sometimes managers consider a member of staff fit for promotion. Now, unfortunately, sometimes members of staff may be demoted after they have maybe been unethical, or after they have done something that is desirable. Demotion is also considered part of staff placement. Demotion refers to downgrading an employee or reducing the employee in rank. This is commonly done as a disciplinary measure in a bid to humble the employee or teach the employee a lesson, something that should not happen, but sometimes it happens when the employees do not perform to the expectations of the organization. Now, this slide looks at staff appraisal, or what we normally call performance appraisal. Performance appraisal is very important in knowing whether what we are set to do, we are doing it. So we need to be appraised to find out whether what a member of staff is supposed to do is being done. Now, of course, performance appraisal closely related to the members of staff whom we selected, those whom we recruited, and sometimes we base on the appraisal by a member of staff, based on that appraisal to promote that staff. And sometimes performance appraisal could be good or it could be bad, depending on how each one of us, the appraiser and the person who is appraised, looks at it. Sometimes members of staff do not want to be appraised, but it's a duty of the manager to educate the employees on the importance of performance appraisal, and this appraisal ought to be carried out. What normally can happen is that, or what should happen is that the appraiser should appraise the member of staff when there is a discussion between the two, and they should agree on particular things. That's how appraisal should be done. Because it is quite necessary in the management of an organization to appraise the employees. And it's important that the employee perceives this appraisal as fair. So it is the duty of the manager to, educate the employee to perceive this appraisal as something which is good and which is beneficial to both the manager and the employee. Why is this so important? Because it is this appraisal, performance appraisal, that helps the organization to survive. Otherwise, without appraisal, we won't know whether what we are doing is okay. And this appraisal also provides us a good basis for the development of members of staff, because you will know where a particular member of staff is weak, so that you can organize a training program or an education program to strengthen the member of staff in that area. Staff appraisal basically, finds out whether the goals that we set, especially these performance goals. Remember, when especially middle managers come up with tactical plans, in that planning they set performance goals. So they need to appraise the employees to see whether they are making their effort or they are doing their best to achieve the performance and implementation goals that were planned in the tactical plans of the middle level managers. That's where staff appraisal becomes very important. It measures the accomplishment of plans. Staff appraisal is important. It keeps the employees themselves alert on what they are supposed to do. They don't forget what they are supposed to do, because they know at the end of the day they are going to be appraised. So the organization benefits because the staff are alert on what they are supposed to do. If you have clients and customers, they become more satisfied. The better the members of staff perform, the better the clients become satisfied. So appraisal helps to identify the potential of each employee in achieving the set targets of the organization. Therefore, appraisal basically improves performance. It improves performance of the member of staff, and when the manager continuously or regularly gives a constructive feedback, then that's when the employee is assisted to improve on performance. So managers should not forget to always give constructive but not destructive feedback when they are reporting their findings resulting from appraising their members of staff. This slide looks at staff remuneration. Now, staff remuneration is something that is very important for the human resource manager to think about. How are various members of staff in the organization? How should they be remunerated? That is the duty of the human resource manager, to advise top management on how best to remunerate members of staff in the organization. Now, sometimes your remuneration can be in various packages. This could be a salary package. It could be various incentives that we give to our employees, allowances. Sometimes employees are given wages, and so on and so forth. So remuneration packages may be of various types. Now, these packages may be given to the employees for work that they have done, for the service that they have rendered to the organization. Sometimes the employees may be rewarded because of their commitment to the organization, and some employees basically do work that helps the organization to survive. So these employees are rewarded in various ways. That's where staff remuneration is also one of the most important duties of the human resource manager, to ensure that all members within the organization are rewarded accordingly, and their rewards are motivating enough for these members of staff to continue offering service to the organization. This slide looks at staff development. Staff development is another responsibility of the human resource manager. It is the human resource manager who is supposed to design staff development programs, be they for professional staff working in the organization, be they for non-professional members of staff, be they for paraprofessionals. It is the duty of the human resource manager in the organization to ensure that all these categories of members of staff are continuously developed. Now, we need to focus on all members of staff. That's why the human resource manager must first of all study the different categories of members of staff within the organization and design staff development programs for each one of them. So this could be in form of workshops, there could be seminars, conferences. In organizations where we have professional members of staff, there are various professional conferences where these members of staff have to go, and the human resource manager must make sure that professional members of staff within the organization continuously attend professional conferences, because it is in these professional conferences where members of staff come to learn about new developments in their areas of specialization. Now, some members of staff in the organization may require to advance academically, so the human resource manager must design academic study programs meant for these members of staff. And it's always important that the organization budgets for staff development. A staff development budget must be present within a sensible organization. All sensible organizations have what we call staff development programs, and these programs are clearly budgeted for. Organizations which are professional in nature also have what we call continuous professional development, and their members of staff normally go for continuous professional development, be it within the organization. Continuous professional development may be done outside the organization. An organization must be able to basically develop their members of staff academically and professionally or otherwise. So that's why staff development, as one of the duties of the human resource manager, is also very important in a sensible organization, especially in organizations which are formal. Now, in the next slide, we shall also look at staff replacement. Finally, in this topic, let us look at staff replacement. Members of staff may decide to leave the organizations for various reasons. Sometimes staff may retire after attaining the retirement age, or staff may be fired after management decides that these are no longer wanted, maybe for breach of code of conduct and so on and so forth. Sometimes staff may become disengaged. Staff disengagement is where a member of staff loses morale in the work they are doing in the organization. The employee may be there, but the ideas of the employee may be somewhere else. Sometimes this is due to the employee becoming dissatisfied with the way things are going on within the organization, so the employee becomes disengaged. It is the duty of the human resource manager to note which employees are becoming disengaged, why are they becoming disengaged. Sometimes these employees may decide to leave the organization, and the human resource manager finds that these employees have to be replaced. So there must be a replacement policy that guides the organization in replacing members of staff who have left the organization. So the replacement policy is a guiding policy to decide in the best way whom to replace and how to replace members of staff who have left the organization. So basically that is the end of our topic number 4 relating to staffing. I will encourage students to continue exploring other information sources in form of textbooks, in form of academic journals or otherwise, to get more literature relating to this topic of staffing and human resource management.